Okay, these are just a few quick notes we're going to take together in class for section 4.3. So you guys already watched, or you should have watched, video 3 at home. So it goes along with video 3, but we're just going to review quickly before you get to work today. So we still have the same goal, right? We're solving inequalities now, but the goal is still the same. We know that we are going to isolate the variable. Right? We're going to try to get the variable by itself. That's the same as what we've been doing. The tool is still to use inverse operations. Right? Inverse operations to cancel things out so that we can get the variable by itself. And the golden rule, keep things balanced. So fill this in with me. Right? Keep things balanced. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. And we're still going to show all our work, just like we did in chapter 3 as we were solving equations. I want you to add, though, in this section, a couple extra things. We just have to make sure for your final answer that the variable is on the left, right? So for inequalities now, we have to make sure our final answer has the variable on the left. Okay, so big idea in this section. Now we are solving inequalities with multiplication and division. That's section 4.3. And the big idea is that you do everything as normal except when you multiply or divide by a negative. If you multiply or divide by a negative on both sides, right? So if your work is to cancel something out includes multiplying or dividing by a negative on both sides, then you need to flip the sign, the greater than or less than sign. Flip which way it's going, okay? So we will look at examples. But pause if you need to catch up. All that should be filled in, okay? And we're actually going to, I'm going to unfold my paper. Yours is a half page, but we're going to actually move over to these examples. So find these examples on your page, and we're going to solve and graph. So here's just a few quick examples where we're going to get the variable by itself. Okay, so I'm still going to draw the line down the equal sign. I notice that the b is being divided by 6, so I cancel that out by multiplying by 6 on both sides. 6's cancel out. B is greater than, and over here I get negative 66. Okay, we're not going to make fancy number lines. I'm fine if you just put, right, 0, negative 66, and I know greater than is going to be an open circle, arrow to the right. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, trying to get c by itself. So draw the line down the middle. C is being multiplied by 4, so I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides, keep everything balanced. And I get C is less than or equal to, and this gives me negative 28 divided by 4, negative 7. So that's my solution. And then the graph, right, I got 0, negative 7, and it's going to be a closed circle for less than or equal to, closed circle, arrow to the left. Okay, so that's just reminding us, how do we cancel out division? How do we cancel out multiplication? We get our solution and a graph. Okay, now, because we talked about this a lot in video 3, and we wrote it right here, the extra trick to remember here is just be careful if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative. All right, so let's do one of those. I'm going to still draw my line. I'm still trying to get this k by itself. It's being multiplied by a fraction, and we know that we cancel out a fraction by multiplying by the reciprocal. If my fraction is negative, my reciprocal is negative. And whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other side. Okay? Well, right there, as soon as I realize that I'm multiplying by a negative on both sides, that's this. I have to flip that sign to be going the other direction. So right there, it was a greater than sign. I realize that I multiplied by a negative on both sides. It gets flipped going the other way. Okay? So the 6 and the 6 and the 7 and the 7 and the negative all cancel, bring down your k. This sign gets flipped, okay? And then I got to work this out. Well, a negative times a negative is just a positive answer, and let's use our shortcut. Remember, we said 12 divided by 6 is 2. Keep that number in your head. Times 7 is 14. Okay? So, because I multiplied by a negative on both sides, the sign got flipped. And now when I graph it, I'm going to graph 14. K is less than 14, so open circle, arrow to the left. Pause if you need to catch up with any of this. Okay, we've got one more on this slide to do. I'll zoom in a little bit more so maybe you can see better. All right, so I'm trying to get B. Draw the line down the middle. The B is being multiplied by -4, so to cancel that out, I'm going to divide by -4. Right there, as soon as you divide by a negative on both sides, bam, your sign gets flipped. So it was a less than or equal to sign. Now it's going this way, greater than or equal to sign. Okay. These -4s cancel out. Bring down your B. And then I'm just going to type that in my calculator. 9.6 divided by -4. Type it in. And I get -2.4. So my solution now is B is greater than or equal to -2.4. Just a quick sketch. Go ahead, just even put -2.4 on there. Close circle, arrow to the right. Okay? So, we had two normal problems that we just solved for the variable and graphed them. Then we had two where we noticed that we were either multiplying or dividing by a negative on both sides. And so the signs had to flip. Okay, make sure you flip the sign before you graph it. All right. What about these? So now I'm underneath the first slide again. We're going to be looking at these on this one. Okay. Well, if you notice, these ones have some negatives. Okay. But you'll also notice that the variable's not on the left. It's not on the front. The variable's in the back, on the right. So let's work these out together. Pause at any point if you need to catch up. All right. Draw the line down the middle. Trying to get this C by itself. So I know I'm going to have to divide by -4. Divide by -4. Okay, we noticed that we divided by a negative on both sides. So right away, that means that this symbol, my inequality sign, has to flip. Now it's going the other way. Bring everything down. C. And 32 divided by -4 is -8. Okay, so we got the flip. But we know I can't leave your final answer with the variable in the back, right? So we got to spin it all around. So I'm going to rewrite it. Instead of saying -8 is less than C, I'm going to say C is greater than -8. Okay, so I flipped the sign because I divided by a negative on both sides, and then I spun the whole thing around to get the variable in the front. So I call this a flip and a spin. All right, let's do another one. Draw your line down the middle. Here's my variable. I'm trying to get it by itself, so I got to cancel out dividing by -3. Well, the inverse of dividing by -3 is to multiply by -3. Right there, as soon as you recognize that you just multiplied by a negative on both sides, the sign gets flipped. So now it's going the other way. Okay, the 3's cancel. Bring down your x. And -3 times -8 is +24. But I can't leave the variable in the back, so I got to rewrite it. Instead of saying 24 is less than x, I need to say x is greater than 24. Okay, again, so this is a flip the sign because you multiplied by a negative on both sides, but then also spin it around to write your variable on the left. All right, last one down here. Why don't you pause and try this one? Maybe talk it over with your neighbor. Do this one real quick, and then check your final answer. So pause here if you need to. All right, I know I'm going to cancel out this fraction by multiplying by the reciprocal. The fraction was negative, so the reciprocal is negative. Whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other side. So the 2/3 and the 3/2 and the negative all cancel out. Bring down your variable. As soon as I multiplied by that negative on both sides, my sign has to flip. So now it's going this way. And 3/2 of 18, well, 18 divided by 2 is 9, times 3, I should get negative 27. Now, I'm not going to circle that yet because my variable's in the back. I got to rewrite it. Instead of saying negative 27 is greater than v, I need to say v is less than negative 27. Okay, so again, these ones here were examples where we had to flip it because of the negatives, but then also spin our final answer around so that the variable's in the front. Okay, so this last slide right here, I don't want you to solve them. Cross those directions out. You do not have to solve it or graph it. Okay, I just want to talk through these, and I just want to know, are you going to flip it, are you going to spin it, or both? Okay, so let me do one as an example. I'm noticing on this first one, I'm noticing that I'm going to have to multiply by a negative on both sides to cancel out this negative 3. So right there, that tells me I've got to flip the sign of my answer, because I know I'm going to have multiplication by a negative on both sides. Okay, let's look at number 8. Well, in number 8, I have a negative that I've got to cancel out, so that's going to mean I got to flip, right? I have to flip the way the sign is going because I'm going to have to multiply by negative 2 on both sides. I also notice that my variable's here in the back on the right. So when I'm done, I'm also going to have to spin my answer around. So this one is a flip and a spin. It's a flip for the negative, and then it's a spin back around to get the variable in front. So sometimes you'll have problems where it starts like this, you flip it so it's going the other way, and then you spin it around and it might actually end up back the same way it started. Okay? So pause and take a minute to talk to your neighbors about 11, 9, 13, 10, these 4. Talk about if those are going to be a flip or a spin. You don't actually have to work them out. Flip or spin. Pause, and then we'll go over the answers when we're ready. Okay, so I'm recognizing that I'm going to have to divide by a negative on both sides. That's going to be a flip, but the variable's already on the left, so I'm good there. Okay, here, I don't have any work with a negative on both sides, right? I'm just going to multiply by 5, 6. That's cool. So no flip, but the variable's in the back, so I will have to spin it around. So I call that a spin. Okay, this one. Nothing with negatives. I'm only going to divide by 3, so no flipping. But again, the variable's in the back, so that is going to be a spin. My final answer will need to be spun around so that the n comes on the left. And then this one. Yep, I'm going to have to multiply by a negative on both sides to cancel out this negative. But the h is already on the left, so that's good. So it's just a flip. Okay? Don't worry too much about my words, flip and spin. I just want us to start noticing, oh, negative on both sides, I got to flip the sign. Or, oh, variable in the back, I'm going to have to spin it all around to get my final answer. Okay? All right, so we've got this page filled in. You are going to continue working on 4.3 practice today.